Hey everybody, welcome back to Old School Gamers. Today I wanted to talk to you about a device that X-Arcade came out with. It's called the Trackball Spinner Mixer. So what does this thing do, and do you need it in your setup? Let's talk about it. Let's take a look at arcade games for an example. When you're playing an arcade game, you want to play it with the controls that the game was intended to be played with. And when it comes to emulating those games, you'll have to configure each one to use the correct controls individually. Or do you? And that's where this little device comes in and shines a bright light on the input device identifying darkness of despair. Say that 3 times fast. The idea is that instead of having to code a game for a spinner and then code this other game for a trackball, let's just combine those 2 devices so that we can set one device for all games that require trackball or spinner. This especially comes in handy when you don't know the device index for your input devices. Just recently, I did a video on the new Tankstick Max that the X-Arcade folks recently released that has some features like the 2 new additional spinners as well as a trackball. So let's break it down to how these devices are categorized. And this will help explain what the mixer actually is doing when you connect it. The trackball is one mouse device, and interestingly enough, the 2 spinners are another mouse input device that has been split. What they did is they had one spinner use the x-axis of the second mouse input, while the second spinner uses the y-axis of that same mouse device as an input. So this new device that X-Arcade folks have released, the Trackball Spinner Mixer, will combine the 2 mouse devices into a single mouse device. So let's take a look at my setup, and I'll show you how the mixer actually works. Here I have the Raspberry Pi 4 and the Tankstick Max connected. I've plugged in the Tankstick Max joystick USB cable and the Trackball Spinner USB cable to the Pi 4. So for now, I'm not going to connect the Trackball Spinner Mixer. I want you to see how the Pi 4 detects these devices normally. And then we're going to connect it afterwards and show you how it can be beneficial. Alright, so we're going to run EV tests so I can show you what the Raspberry Pi is actually going to see. And it'll list out different USB devices that are connected. But remember, you can use the mixer on Batocera and also the PC. So as you can see, EV test lists out a bunch of USB devices. Event 0 is my Player 1 joystick and all of its buttons. And Event 1 is Player 2 joystick and its buttons on the Tankstick as well. Event 7 is for the spinners. And Event 8 is for the trackball. Alright, so that's how everything looks normally. Let's plug in the mixer and make sure you plug it in to the USB cable that's used for your trackball, not your joystick, because that's a cable that's used for both the trackball and the spinner. Now, one thing I did want to say is that the mixer plug is kind of large and I had to move it over to a different port, so just be aware that spacing might be an issue. If space is an issue, just use a USB dongle. Pretty cool. So now let's see what EV Test lists out. As you can see, I still have Event 0 and Event 1, which are Player 1 and 2 of course, but now I only have Event 7. And Event 7, if I move either the trackball or either one of the spinners, they will register an event because they've all been combined to the same USB device as expected. Pretty cool. Alright, so now I have one mouse device for all my spinners and my trackball. So let's launch RetroPie, and as you can see, I have both Arkanoid and Centipede. Now Centipede is one of my all-time favorite trackball games, but before we start playing, let's take a look at the devices listed in RetroArch so you can kind of see on the front end what exactly the mixer did. So when you go under Settings and Input, under the port controls, what you're going to notice is that it only lists one mouse device, so that we don't have to worry about getting it confused with the spinners or the trackball, or even have to worry about programming it. So Centipede launches, and voila, I can use the trackball. Next, we're going to launch Arkanoid. That's a good thing I've never claimed to be the best at Arkanoid, but the spinners are working just fine. Gotta admit, that was pretty easy, but I want to do one last test. I want to see if the mixer will work for other devices besides the X-Arcade products. So here you can see I plugged in 2 generic controllers that are USB, and I put them into my Pi via hub. And then I'm going to plug that hub into the mixer, and I want to see if I get one event ID and if I can use both of them, you know, as if they were one controller in EV test. Let's try it out. So I immediately booted into EV test, and as you can tell, I only had one device, which was expected. So cool, both controllers registered, all the D-pad and buttons on both controllers registered as if they were the same controller. But yeah, I got stuck on the no gamepads detected screen forever. For whatever reason, RetroPie did not like what it was receiving. So EV test likes it, but RetroPie doesn't. Interesting. I hope you enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad that the X-Arcade folks released this. It definitely makes it easier for the whole index despair issue, you know, for each device. It's just a plug and play, and it combines all of the mouse inputs into one, just making it so much simpler. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it as always, and I will catch you next time.